I think we met for coffee and just started spitballing about, wonder what it'd be like to, build our own trail.
We had this community that was eager to help build something and make something unique and make something that they could take some ownership of.
We have big dreams.
We want to make as many miles of trail as we can. We're going to build it, we're going to maintain it, we're going to make sure it's safe for everybody to enjoy. It takes a family, it takes a community to love and nurture the trail and make it something special. In 2010, I had run a couple of marathons and I got this crazy idea to run a 50K out on the east side of Ohio. And I finished that race. I was just totally beaten down and exhausted. My wife gave me a hug and she said, what'd you think? And aside from saying I'm exhausted and that hurt, I said, we need to have a race like this in central Ohio. And that really started it. Figured out the logistics to host a race on the other side of the reservoir. And the first race we held with the Rocks and Roots Winter Trail Series was actually held on a mountain bike trail. And in hindsight, we probably wouldn't have done it that way. Had a great time. I think we had a couple hundred folks that first year. What we didn't do was work as well as we could have with the mountain biking community to make sure that we were holding the race in a manner that was consistent with their trail philosophy. But it became pretty clear that we needed to develop our own trails.
I think we met for coffee not long after that and just started spitballing about, wonder what it'd be like to, build our own trail and what that could potentially look like.
Ivy's cleared up.
I've lived perpetually in the zone of having poison ivy. So
we had the meeting with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources.
And so they kind of gave us the, I'll say a yellow light. I wouldn't say they gave us a green light, but they said, come out, mark the trail, the area where you intend to have the trail. So came out and started marking trees with orange tape and plotting it with GPS watches and to give them a map to say, this is where we intend to have the trail.
This section that we've built on was really nothing more than game trails. There was nothing single track and there was nothing really, I think, taking advantage of the best part of this park, and that's the lake view. So there was really little that was along the shoreline. So that was kind of our main focus when we started, was we've got this beautiful lake. We need to get a coastal view and just stay along the natural path along the lake. It gave us a map.
And once they gave us the green light and said, okay, you're good to go, we started coming out with initially a couple of people, and then it was 10 to 15 people. At the time, we were using all hand-powered tools. There was no power tools used, and we were moving really slow.
Jeff and I had this vision of how long it would take to hit 13 miles or to hit 20 miles out here. From that first day we did a trail build out here, I think we were out here for like 4 hours, and we were so convinced that we had cleared a mile. After we decided to mark it, and we walked back, hiked back, and realized it was like 1/10 of a mile, that was very deflating because I'm exhausted. I'm probably covered in poison ivy. And so to only have 1/10 of a mile was like, wow, okay, this is going to take a little bit longer than what I thought.
That was when we decided we needed some power tools. We bought one, what we affectionately call a trail blaster, which is essentially a jazzed up weed whacker with a saw blade on it. And that made things a whole lot easier. We can move a lot quicker to cut down a lot of the thinner stuff like this here and chop that down and then have folks come behind us to make sure that we've got the roots and the ground cleared so that people can run without tripping over stuff. And that whole process, still was quite time consuming. We're still building to this day, 5 years later.
We are currently at just under 13 miles out here. It's basically 2 10K loops, and there's definitely room for more, to where we could easily see a 50-mile loop out here and never touch the trail twice. So ideally, that would be my goal.
One of the unique things about our trail running community is that it kind of started in part because of the training groups that we host with Fleet Feet Sports. Our marathon training group meets every Saturday. We have 500 to 600 people running up and down the multi-purpose trails in Central Ohio. And a lot of these folks are looking for other outlets to continue with their active endeavors. And so when we mentioned the fact that we're building these trails up here at Alum Creek, they jumped at the chance to get involved, to come run the trails, to help us build the trails. So we had this community that was eager to help build something. So whether it was somebody from one of our No Boundaries 5K groups, or the marathon training group, or what became our Fleet Feet Trail Runner 101 group, we have this phenomenal community of folks who are willing to put in some hours here on the trail and make it all happen.
Before we take off, like I said, I wanted to thank you guys for coming out and supporting the trail and continuing to support the trail that we've all had a hand in building. Whether you're out here with a backhoe, a rake, or a forklift, whatever you guys want to come out with, we'll use it. But whether you're doing that or just showing up tonight and running on the trail, it makes such a huge difference. Even though you may not see it as being important, you may not see it as being a lot, it's a ton. Just coming out here once a week or once a month and experiencing the trail and spreading the word about it makes such a huge difference to us. This is our typical Thursday night run. We meet every Thursday with a decent sized group, usually 15 to 20 people show up, and we run the trail that we built.
Sort of this area as far as nightlife and things like that?
So we're currently in downtown Columbus. With Ohio State being here, there is in school. There's obviously a much younger crowd around, but Columbus is a pretty big city. So even when school's not in session, there are quite a few people out and about. So this area at night, I mean, it's busy in here now, but at night it obviously is a lot busier.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bars and different restaurants right on this strip that we're at. So they're literally on the other side of this wall, there's a barcade, just walls and walls of video games, and they actually have track and field. They have the original track and field A and B button with the spin ball, which is a lot of fun, especially after a couple beers.
Cheese fries.
The communal fries.
This is real man wrapped in bacon.
Awesome.
Veggie brat small dog.
Oh, nice.
And in Chicago, we got ketchup, mustard, hot sauce. Look good?
Yeah, it looks very good. Yeah, this seems like a good place to come maybe after a run.
Pre-run is, I'm a little skeptical on pre-run how it'll be, but
What I really liked about your downtown is that bike path that you have there, which I saw some runners out on, obviously a lot of commuters biking and stuff.
And there's like some ways that you can connect metro parks that'll take you even about 45 minutes outside of the city. In fact, there's actually a bike path that you can take from Cincinnati all the way to Cleveland, which is basically 2 hours south and 2 hours north. But the Olentangy is sort of the main one that everyone knows. It's a greenway, so a lot of people are commuting and biking on it. And it goes from downtown and it eventually will connect to High Banks. When I first moved here and I said I was a trail runner, people were like, oh, you should go to High Banks. And it's just a crushed, not all of it's crushed limestone, but it's a wide path that has some really nice overlooks. It is a metro park, so it has some fields for people to do some soccer or any of the other sports that they might want to do.
trail that we're on eventually will lead us to the Overlook Trail, which is probably one of the more popular destinations, because at the Overlook, essentially, there's an area where the river flows at the bottom, and around the corner there's a bald eagle's nest, which is a really popular thing for people to see. Now, unfortunately, right now, where it's a little lush and green, good job, it's a little overgrown and you may or may not see it. As you can tell, there's a lot of people walking and hiking and people that have weighted packs, and the Overlook Trail is probably one of the more popular ones.
Used to live right around the corner here in Clintonville. We're at Lineage Brewing. It's one of 37 local breweries. We tend to socialize after the run, whether that's there at the trail or head into one of the local pizza places or brewery in town. There were nights, one night it was in the middle of what was seemingly a blizzard. We probably, while we were in there for like an hour, we got like 4 inches of snow. We come out and realized maybe having a couple beers probably wasn't the greatest decision, but.
So, as far as winters go here, and I think you probably get some rough ones with snow. Are you able to get out on the trails in the snow at all?
Yeah, always. I don't think there's ever been a time where I've shown up for a Thursday night trail run that there's been nobody there. A couple times, it'd be 5 below, and I'd show up just thinking, oh, please nobody show up so I can turn around and go back home. Yeah. Stop. And then there'd be a carload of people that show up, if not, 10 to 15, and they're all bundled up, and we go and run. We got frost in our beards, and we have a very active fitness community, or fitness-minded community in Central Ohio.
It's really cool you guys are on the forefront of this new running movement here. It sounds like just a little bit ago it wasn't much of anything.
Well, I think there's always been a trail running community here. I had folks trying to drag me out to 50K and 50-mile races 10 and 15 years ago, at which point I wanted nothing to do with it, but there really was nowhere within Central Ohio to do it, and that's kind of what we set out to do, is provide a venue for these folks that have been trail running for years, somewhere that they don't have to drive 2 and 3 hours or out of state. We wanted them to be able to stay local and get in a few miles if they need to. You can get to the Rocks and Roots Trail 10, 15 minutes from pretty much anywhere in Columbus. Growing up as a high school and collegiate runner, I kind of thought it was all about, running as hard as I can for as long as I can. And graduated and moved on, was teaching and was coaching high school cross country and track, and then stumbled into really what is now my career when I left teaching, and discovered half and full marathon training, and it just really kind of reshaped my outlook on running and what it's all about, that it's more about a healthy, active lifestyle more so than how fast and how strong can I be. It's more about a sustainable lifestyle.
I was a big boned athlete, so I was not a runner. I primarily did football and wrestling, and then wrestled in college. I got injured in college and then pretty much put most of that on the shelf after my second or third year at Ohio Northern. I think after I got hurt, it gave me an excuse to not be active, and so I had convinced myself that it was okay to, sort of just still eat unhealthy and not be active. I gained I think a lot of weight. After a few years, maybe 5-6 years, I went to the doctor for just some acid and I thought I was having a heart attack. I'm 26 years old and I feel like I'm having a heart attack, so I go to the doctor a couple times actually, and my wife drives me over there at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they hook me up to a bunch of machines and do an EKG, and it was the first time anybody had told me that my weight was a concern, and that was the doctor. So I went back home, invested in a scale, which I hadn't stepped on since I was a wrestler, and it's when my eyes kind of were open to the fact that, wow, this was getting a little out of control. And so that's when I decided to try running.
Family's a pretty powerful thing. Growing up, my parents didn't run. My mom actually told me throughout my entire running career that she wouldn't run because during high school gym class it hurt her knees. My mom's now 75. When she turned 67, she showed up out of the blue at our beginner 5K training group, which starts at the same time as our marathon training group. And I'm convinced that she just wanted to see me every Saturday. But since then, over the last 6-7 years, she's done more 5Ks and more half marathons than I have. My dad, who's 76, started coming out with my mom to do these half marathons and 5Ks. So it's exceptionally powerful. My lovely wife and I have a year-and-a-half-old daughter, and one of the things we love to do is bring Harper out here. We'll put her in our little carrier and we hike along, and she just giggles the whole time. She thinks this is great. You know, she loves grabbing the trees as we're walking by and laughing at the birds clapping.
For as long as I can remember, you know, I've always wanted to be a dad, and so that was always in the back of my mind was, you know, if I can make some decisions now that can improve my quality of life or my longevity here on this earth, then, you know, it's only going to be better for my wife and my kids, you know, for me to do that for myself. When my kids say they want to go hiking, or once my son wants to go for run a race with me, I don't think I've ever really said no. There are times where he wants to run a 50K or 50 mile that is probably not wise to let him do that, being 7 years old, 8 years old. So, but you know, we've done 5Ks. We've done trail 10Ks out here. And now my daughter, who's 5, is interested in the same stuff. You know, she wants to see how fast she can run, and she wants to come out and play in the woods, and which is really even more fun for me, seeing my little princess wanting to come out and get dirty. That's exciting.
You know, if I'm running a race out here, my wife and daughter will show up and surprise me, wait at the finish line for us. And there's no greater feeling than be running in a race and see your family waiting for you, cheering you on.